We got a new...
Oh, shit.
Oh, shoot! Jamie! Jamie! Now what are you gonna do? Oh, okay. We got a seesaw for the tree. And it's very bright. What is it, Jamie? It's a seesaw. Look at it. What's this? What is that?
What's that seesaw doing?
It's a seesaw. What? What? It's going up and down. What? Get it. Get it. Get it.
What's that doing? Oh, look at that seesaw go.
Get it.
Whoa.
Get it. Okay, hello everybody. It is a dark and dreary day today. Today is Saturday, December 12th, 2020, and we've already had a little drama in our house today. You want to tell what happened?
What happened? Oh.
You will have seen some footage of Jamie barking at a Christmas decoration that we just received from Amazon.
Yes.
So tell what happened.
It was a little, what is it, fiber optic village?
Yeah, it was a little light up village.
With a little seesaw with kids on it.
Yeah, it was
and
cute.
It was very nice. We plugged it in, all of a sudden Sharon says, I smell something burning. And we look and there's smoke pouring out.
Pouring! My house stinks like smoke. Electrical smoke.
So that's going right back.
Oh, yes. Yes. Right back to Amazon where it belongs. I let them know what happened. Oh, my goodness. How crazy is that?
Yep. Not good.
Anyway, so
poor Jamie got all excited and loved it.
I know.
Couldn't get over the kids.
He loved
He loved them, and now they're gone.
Nope.
We're
Okay.
going to Home Depot, so maybe we can find.
If we find
something,
I don't know.
A carousel.
Okay, couple things. I have a new sweater.
Jamie
This
likes it.
is the Eastbray sweater.
Nope.
I just went to pick Tom up. I can't film him because it's so dark in this kitchen. He wouldn't come out, but he hears us talking and he wants to be on. Yeah, this is the Eastbray sweater by Skeindeer, and I finished it, and it's fantastic. Look, it fits great. I shortened it. I took about half a skein off the bottom, literally. I'll show you. Hold on. This ball of yarn came off the bottom of the sweater.
Yeah.
Because it was too long and looked terrible on me. But now it looks awesome. It's the perfect length.
Yes, looks very
You like
nice.
it? Thank you. Come on over here. All right, so we're going to go to Home Depot. And right after that, you're going to see a little tutorial that I filmed on gauge. So hope you enjoy that. And we'll see you tomorrow on the 14th. Cheers.
Cheers.
So we are up here in my studio, and I'm going to talk to you today about gauge. And before I do my little flat lay tutorial over here, I want to talk about the difference between the term gauge and swatch. Some people use the terms interchangeably. They say, oh, I'm going to knit a gauge. Gauge is simply the size of the stitch. It has nothing to do with the swatch, although people do call a swatch a gauge swatch. A swatch is the practice piece of fabric that we knit in order to make sure we're in the ballpark of having a sweater that's not too big or not too small. So, gauge, size of the stitch, swatch, practice little fabric. Gauge swatch is, again, another term for the little practice fabric that you knit. Okay, so I have some sweaters here today, and we are going to count the stitches and figure out what the gauge is that I've already knit. So I am starting a new sweater. I am starting a love note, This is the yarn. That is my hand-dyed yarn. Doesn't really have a colorway name. I may make it available after the holiday season. You hold mohair together with a strand of regular superwash merino. I'm using my singles base and a strand of my mohair base. The gauge for this project is 4 stitches to the inch, which is 16 stitches for 4 inches. Now, my Floof sweater has a gauge of 20 stitches for 4 inches, which would be a gauge of 5 stitches to the inch. So, let's measure to see. I'll show you how I measure. 2 ways you can measure a sweater. You can take the number of stitches in the body and you can divide that by your bust measurement, and that will give you the gauge that you knit. Taking into account if you did waist shaping, you're going to have to figure out where you're going to put your ruler to measure that. We're just going to measure the fabric itself, kind of like when you do a swatch. So I have 2 sweaters I'm going to measure. I'm going to measure this one. The Love Note calls for me to use a size 10 needle, which is the suggested needle. And I don't know, I'm probably going to do a swatch this evening, and we'll talk more about that later. But the other thing I want to talk about is when you're knitting a sweater, particularly a sweater, when you want the fit to be correct. And there is a needle suggested. Be careful. There are some knitters who will just say, oh, it calls for a size 5 needle. That's what I'm going to use. Well, your knitting can be much, much different than the designer's knitting. And you may not get the same result that she does. And some knitters will say, well, I knit to gauge. Well, yeah, okay, that's cool. But I know that Hohi's gauge is much different than Skeindeer's gauge. I actually have a very similar gauge to Hohi. She knits slightly looser. So do I. Skeindeer, Ellie knits tight, and I knit a lot of her patterns. I'm wearing one right now. She knits tight, and I know that my gauge would not match her needle size. And she really doesn't give a needle size. She'll just say, she'll give a range, because she knows that people have a different knitting style that she does, and a different gauge than she does while knitting. So, let's get to it, and we will measure my sweater. Here is my Floof sweater by Skeindeer. I used a size 7 on this sweater. Look back in my Ravelry notes, and that is what I used. So let's see what kind of gauge I got. I am using this clear ruler, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 4 inches right here. So I'm going to count between my fingers here how many stitches. So let's see how many we get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Okay, 19 stitches per 4 inches. Now that I think of it, I think the gauge that she knit this at was 19, not 20. So, let's do some math. 19 divided by 4 is 4.75 stitches to the inch. So each of these inch increments has 4 3/4 inches. Almost 5. Not quite though, and it will make a difference. So So I also want to talk about sizing. So if you get a gauge swatch that is tighter than the called for gauge and you like the fabric, can you go up a size in the pattern? Yes. Just be aware that your neckline might be off because your designer has graded for each neckline for the size of the person. So a person who is larger than you, who has a larger bust size, may have a larger neckline and may hang on you. I have changed my size according to if I wanted to knit. Say I got a tighter gauge and I wanted to knit a bigger size. I've done that before and I've had good results. So you can do it. And the way I usually do it is I find the body stitches in a pattern. And I'm going to show you the number of body stitches in this pattern without showing you the whole pattern. Okay, so for the Love Note sweater, the number of body stitches for my size is 194. So what I would do is I would divide 194 by my stitches per inch. Let's do that. And I have my number, 48.5. Now, if for some reason my gauge swatch showed that I had 5 stitches to the inch, here's the number of stitches that I would have for if I was going to knit, the size I wanted, but divided by 5 stitches to the inch. It's 10 inches smaller. I don't want my sweater 10 inches smaller. Certainly not. But if for some reason I liked this fabric for that sweater, I probably would never do that. I'd probably go up a needle size. I could knit a larger size, so let's look at the body stitches here for the size. Let's pick the largest size, which is 290 divided by 5. That would be 58. That's too many. Okay, so let's see. Let's do 226 divided by 5. Okay, so that's a little smaller. Let's do 266 divided by 5. Okay, so I would do probably, I would probably do the next to the largest size, which would be a 53-inch bust if I had a 5-stitch gauge. I am not doing that. My neckline would probably be huge and I would hate it. So, but that's how you do it. You just you find the body stitches in the pattern, this measurement right here, and you divide it by the gauge that you get. And then you match it with, a body stitch size that would fit you for that. Okay, so let's wrap all of this up. I hope you all didn't get confused by all of that. So, here's my suggestion. If you're going to knit a sweater, take into account if it's a fitted sweater. This is not a fitted sweater. If it has negative ease where it's going to hug your curves, make sure that your gauge, the size of your stitches, is a pretty close match. If it's a more loose fitting sweater, it's not terrible. Just kind of know going in what you're in for. So, number 1, I would not go by suggested needle size per se. It's a good way to start if you just want to pick up that needle and start knitting. Just be aware, maybe measure as you go, see if you're kind of on the ballpark if you don't want to swatch. My other recommendation is to swatch. I pretty much always swatch because it varies so much. Use the same type of needle in your swatch as you do in the knitting the garment. If you want to knit a different size because your gauge is different, you can. Just be aware that your neckline fit might be a little off, although I have had good results with it. In order to do that, I would take your gauge, which is stitches per inch, and I would divide it by the body stitches in the pattern that most fits your bust size. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, just leave it down below, and I will try to answer them tomorrow when I am going to show you how to knit a gauge swatch in the round. See you then. Cheers.